Hi, I'm Marie Hadley. In this video, I will be talking you through 5 tips to improve your law essays. Tip number 1, introductions are important. Your introduction is your first opportunity to impress your marker. It's your first opportunity to show that you're a high distinction student and that you know exactly what it is you're doing in this paper. So in terms of putting your best foot forward when it comes to an introduction, you need to make sure that your introduction clearly sets the scene for the paper to come. So that is, it provides 1 or 2 sentences of background information about the topic. Then you also need to provide information about the scope of your paper. So basically how you've interpreted the question and what your paper is going to be looking at. You also need to introduce your arguments with specificity, okay? It will be argued that, all right? That level of specificity, so that as your marker, I get no surprises whatsoever when reading your paper after your introduction. And you also need to state your conclusion clearly. I want to know what your thesis is. I want to know what your overarching position is on the question. So make sure in your introductory paragraph, you literally state what your paper concludes, okay? This paper concludes that reform is warranted in X area, or whatever it is your actual thesis is. Okay, step 1, introductions are important. Okay, in terms of my second tip, it's that subheadings are useful, okay? It might be worthwhile checking whether your particular lecturer likes subheadings, but if they're like me, they will love them because it makes marking easier, all right? Not only does it make marking easier for us, I think for you, it forces you to think strategically about your content, okay? What does section 1 do? What's its point? Am I introducing my point clearly at the start of the section? At the end of the section, am I clearly stating or showing what I've proved this means for my thesis? Okay? And then when you move on to your next section, think about putting a linking sentence when you're introducing your next point. So subheadings help you organize your paper and be a little bit more strategic about drawing out key links across your content. And for your marker, it makes it easier to read for us. All right, my third tip, do not cut corners with your research. I will know if you have Googled. Okay? So make sure you give yourself enough time to have a real proper go at doing your research. And by proper go at doing your research, what I mean is you log onto the library website, you open up key databases, and you start to search the primary material and the second material properly, okay? You try and identify quality sources that are on point for your topic. All right, there is no substitute for peer-reviewed journal articles, and in fact, when I'm marking the research criterion in essay papers, I am looking to see whether you've identified relevant cases and relevant statutes, but I'm also very much looking to see whether you've identified relevant secondary material and whether you've identified relevant quality secondary material, that is peer-reviewed journal articles. All right, there's no shortcut to quality in that respect. So don't cut corners with your research. All right, in terms of the next tip, I've got here your opinion matters, all right? Now, what I mean by that is not just that you need unsubstantiated argument throughout your paper. What I mean is that when you're interacting with your analysis of the sources, so when you're talking about what commentators have said about your topic, you need to always draw that back to your opinion, okay? And what that literally means is you might have in your paragraph, author X argues Y, and you explain what they argued. Then to bring your opinion to the foreground, you would then have something like, this is significant because, or this is persuasive because, okay? And in that because, in the second part of the sentence, is where you draw out the significance of this commentator's points for your point of view, for your position on the topic, okay? So it's about being strategic with your use of secondary materials such as journal articles and framing that content in a way which helps you put forward your arguments and your insights on the topic. All right, and in terms of my fifth tip, okay, essentially this is just a pay attention to the little things. All right, now what I mean by that is make sure you do the formatting of your paper correctly. Make sure you give yourself enough time to go back through and check that your referencing meets the standard, okay, of whatever guide it is that you're implementing, which in Australia is AGLC 4, okay? Make sure with your bibliography that when you're listing sources, you use the categories that are relevant to the bibliography rule in your referencing guide, okay? Make sure you put the last names first. Make sure that with your footnotes, every footnote has that full stop at the end, okay? And for your in-text references, you know, if you're talking about a case and you've referred to it in short form through the short title, make sure the first time you mention the case, you put the party names in full, okay? Little things like this might not be allocated much in your actual marking criteria, but they show a polished paper, and a polished paper is a HD paper more often than not. Okay, so if you want your marker to think you're a HD student and you have that fine attention to detail, you really want to be paying attention to the little things.